Today we're demonstrating the Hansen Sensei X robotic ablation catheter system in action. We've had the system here for getting on for almost a year now. The majority of the cases we do with it are left atrial ablation, AF ablation and redo AF ablation, but we have used it for some VT and also for some right atrial work. Today we've got a very interesting case, a gentleman in his 50s who has a mechanical mitral valve replacement in situ. He also has severely impaired biventricular function and has had what we thought was typical right atrial flutter and a previous cavo-tricuspid isthmus ablation, but subsequently came back with further atrial arrhythmia, which we now know and believe is probably going to be left atrial origin and related in some way to his previous cardiac surgery. We're therefore decided that between ourselves, him and us, that we would take on what may be a fairly challenging ablation procedure and potentially a slightly higher risk procedure, because we are going to have to keep him on his anticoagulation, as we do routinely here, but with his R&R, in this case, very close to 3. But we're confident that we can still perform the procedure with minimal complication. There are a number of reasons why we've chosen to use the Hansen system for this particular case. One is that we believe the catheter stability is going to be very important. We want to deliver our lesion set quickly and effectively. We know that he does have significant and quite severe biatrial dilatation, and therefore there may be some difficulty with catheter stability, which hopefully the Hansen will get around for us. We also know that his septum may be a little thicker, and indeed the tissue and anatomy may be slightly distorted from his previous cardiac surgery. Finally, we want to be in and out as quickly as we possibly can, and we hope that by being able to deliver stable, effective lesions quickly, that will reduce the time of the procedure and reduce the possibility of complications. We come back to PA, please, and down towards the right groin. I'm going to screen this up. All the way down, if you will. So yeah, that one just goes in. I want the ablation catheter just out of the markers there. Okay, we can just store that position. This one just needs to be clipped on there, just across them. And we can still use the Hansen just for that on the right hand side of the heart, absolutely perfect. So what we're trying to do is find all the activation of this chamber between those 2 points and indeed the right atrium as well, and work out where this is coming from.
Press the... Press it.
The more we find it, it seems to be better with the back on the outer. Did we see something early as we came across? Late. Ablated 2 or 3 different tachycardias. Most of them seem to be coming from the right pulmonary veins though.
Oh really?
Yeah. So we just empirically isolated the left and just going to finish off the right. And what you find here is on the next beat, that sharp spike disappears, and that's because what's happened is we've electrically isolated the pulmonary vein. So that signal that was coming into the pulmonary vein and back out of it potentially, which may be triggering off arrhythmias, has now been destroyed. There's a little bit of tissue that would have connected it has then been got rid of completely. So we've completed our case, an interesting case as predicted. What we found was that actually the right atrial isthmus line wasn't blocked at the start, so we decided to use the robot to tie that up first, nice and quick. Found a little signal which is sharp, ablated it, and delayed transisthmus conduction time by over 80 to 90 milliseconds from 120 at the start to 200 milliseconds, convincing bidirectional block. And that's a good way to start the case. However, I think we knew that it wasn't right atrial, and therefore we induced a tachycardia at the start, able to get across into the left atrium, having done a single transeptal puncture, left a wire across, and then mapped it, and perhaps slightly surprisingly, despite the fact that the post-pacing intervals all suggested that this might be a consistent macular entrance circuit found that the map suggested that this was coming from the right side of pulmonary veins. In fact, initially, probably the right upper pulmonary vein. We isolated the right upper pulmonary vein and terminated tachycardia, which is always a good sign as well, and then went on to start to try and confirm that we couldn't re-induce tachycardia. Perhaps not surprisingly, as in this patient group, we were quite easily able to induce further tachycardia. And the first one was a micro-entrance circuit on the anterior wall of the left atrium, quite close to the mitral valve, mechanical mitral valve, which again potentially a pretty tricky area to get to, but the stability of the robot was certainly an advantage there. Ablated that and again terminated tachycardia, and then subsequently able to then induce one more tachycardia. At that point, a bit of a decision process went on, and we decided that we'd go ahead and isolate all the pulmonary veins. And as it turns out, I think the left pulmonary veins are bystanders, but the right inferior pulmonary vein was probably the one that was driving the final tachycardia. So in summary, I think this gentleman had actually what is very unusual, dual right pulmonary vein driven atrial tachycardias rather than a macular entrance circuit, as I was perhaps predicting, related to all the surgery he'd had. But we've isolated all 4 pulmonary veins. We've also treated a micro-entrant tachycardia on the anterior, which may or may not be clinically significant, and we've also now got bidirectional block, I hope, long term across his right atrial cable tricuspid line. I have to say that on balance, there's little that can be said about why we wouldn't use the Hansen in this sort of case. It did what we expected it to do. It was stable. We got effective lesions. We were able to treat the tachyarrhythmia. It didn't take any longer than I can perceive than a conventional case would have taken, and certainly from a comfort point of view, from my point of view, it was much more comfortable, and I feel ready to go ahead and do another case.